Good morning, everyone. I am Jill Seiler, and I am coming to you today out of Charlotte. I work on the instructor team, and I'm also with Christopher Clefane. He's in office with me, and he also works on the instructor team. And then we also have some panelists here today. We've got Rob Burnett and Stephen Rupp. And if you guys just want to, and I'm so sorry, we also have Cassie Worm. I don't want to mispronounce your last name. I'm sorry. If anybody wants to unmute and just briefly share about your role, you can. If not, we can jump into it.
Yep. Good morning. Again, my name is Rob Burnett. I am the product manager for video entertainment here at Snap One, which includes our media distribution and MoIP ecosystem. So we're excited to bring you this great instructional video or webinar this morning. So let us know what questions you have as we go through. Happy to answer anything you've got.
All right, thank you. Okay, so today we are going to talk about our expanded MoIP ecosystem. We're going to start with discussing the 900 and 960 ecosystems, and then we're going to get into basic overseas setup and configuration. And then finally, we will talk about how to integrate these components into Control4. All right, so to start us out today, I know some of you here today have some experience with MoIP. So we want to get started with a quick question just to kind of see what you're most looking forward to about the 960 series. So your options are you're looking forward to the easy setup, the picture-in-picture feature, video tiling, or maybe you're just not sure and you're just here to learn. So if you want to scan the QR code on the screen to put your answer there, or you can go to menti.com and use the code that's on the screen to put your response. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. All right, so looking at our results, I can see that most of us are not sure and they're just here to learn. That's awesome. That's great. That means that we're excited to share with you some things. I see some people are excited about picture-in-picture, and then a couple of others are excited about video tiling. I think the easy setup probably goes without saying. Everybody probably agrees on that one. All right, so we will get into it. So the MoIP ecosystem has removed all barriers to creating a decentralized media over IP system, making multi-room AV easier to install, more flexible, more economical, and infinitely scalable compared to traditional setups. So with the MoIP ecosystem, it's easy to integrate with Episode, Arachnus, Control4, Oversee, Triad, and now Luma. So we are here to talk to you today about how the new MoIP 960 ecosystem, how with it you can incorporate so much more features, exciting features like picture-in-picture, and you can incorporate surveillance in cameras and Chime video doorbells. Another note here is that through Arachnus, you have access to our MoIP easy button setup in Oversee. So, and again, just one of the reasons why this MoIP ecosystem is so awesome and why you should buy it over other video over IP systems is because these integrations with all of these amazing brands is just going to make it easier for you and such a great experience for your clients. All right, so looking at the 900 series, just a quick snapshot here. We're going to start out with the 900 series MoIP controller that works as the brains of the MoIP system. The 900 series audio units give 2-channel audio control throughout the system and adjust audio to account for video delay. They also distribute the audio and can be used as standalone or within a 900 series system to allow for compatibility between current audio equipment and audio for immersive and balanced sounds. Our down mixing transmitters and receivers deliver 4K 30 and HDR 10-bit video and include features of video scaling for compatibility to 4K and 1080p displays, as well as Dolby Atmos and DTS:X. So the 900 series runs on a 2-layer 1 gig PoE switch. You could use Arachnus 210, 310, 620 switches, or the new 220 and 320 switches as well. And then the 900 series ecosystem really started with integrations to Control4, Oversee, Arachnus, as we mentioned, also Riff, and the episode AMP can be used with this system as well. So this was the beginning of a suite of compatible solutions that are designed to amplify the experience for majorly residential AV IP systems. So the 900 ecosystem enables custom integrators to quickly and easily build a media system, a media distribution system that is scalable and provides visually lossless video quality and premium sound without audio delay. So as great as that sounds, we've even expanded with our 960 series. So the 960 series was released late last year, and this includes the features of the 900 series that we know and love, including the 900 series MoIP controller, which still works as the brains of our operation of our MoIP system. Also includes the 960 series is also compatible with the 900 series receiver and transmitter with audio down mixing. However, these are not required with the coming upgrade of episode amps. So audio receivers and transmitters breaking out the audio from the video for better access to the audio only sources. And then new to the 960 series is the transceiver. This is an exciting addition, and we're going to get into more about just the transceiver in a couple of minutes. We'll also talk about the 960 series receivers and transmitters in just a moment. And then another piece of the 960 series that's exciting is that it runs on the 10 gig switch, and it's recommended to pair with our Arachnus 920 layer 3 PoE++ switch. It also supports layer 2. The episode amp takes care of the audio receiver job, plus powering the speakers. And then evolution from the 900 ecosystem to the current ecosystem is that it's still compatible with Riff, Oversee, and Control4, but we have expanded compatible Snap One brands and products, mainly surveillance integration. So as you can see, the MoIP 960 ecosystem has expanded beyond just AV distribution to bring in surveillance and streaming applications that make up the media component. So with the opportunity to scale solutions, you can offer your current and prospective customers an extended array of benefits that will integrate seamlessly with Control4 systems. All right, so at a closer look, what's new with MoIP 960? So the MoIP 960 series enables distribution for 4K 60, 444, HDR10, and Dolby Vision video content and significantly reduce compression via 10 gig network compatibility. And also the 960 transceiver, which is the transceiver is a receiver and a transmitter in a single chassis. So the transceiver can send and receive content simultaneously, or it can be utilized as a dedicated encoder or decoder. And then the 960 receiver unlocks picture-in-picture for Luma and Chime camera feeds, while video tiling enables the user to view up to 16 streams on a single display. And then when paired with an Arachnus 920 switch, setup is simple thanks to easy configuration and Oversee. So once the MoIP controller and endpoints are connected, with a couple of clicks, the 920 switch can auto-configure IGMP, ACL rules, and query settings to ensure that the switch is configured correctly to support the MoIP system. So again, excuse me, looking at the 960 series features as a whole, our 3 SKUs, our transmitter, our receiver, and our transceiver are our 3 endpoints. And then 10 gig compatibility, so customers can change video sources with minimal lag time. 4K 60, 444 for better video. In addition, our video wall will have automatic bezel adjustment, cloud controller for easy setup, and then easier overall setup with the Arachnus switch and that Oversee easy button. So Looking at our transmitter, our B960 transmitter features allow for complete audio flexibility and a premium audio experience for the end user through features of Dolby and DTS audio, down mixing technology, plus HDMI audio API control and lip sync adjustment. So our 960 receiver gives you capabilities for a video wall, but also includes, this is what's going to give you access to video tiling as well as picture-in-picture. And this can work with Chime video doorbells and Luma motion sensing cameras to display picture-in-picture in your video streams. So a little bit more about video tiling. So again, video tiling capability is built in with the B960 receiver, only on the receiver. You can have up to 16 sources at once, and you can have 8 preset layouts. Picture-in-picture, when paired exclusively with, with Luma and or with Chime H264, security feeds can be pulled from the network and shown in a picture-in-picture window. One other note here is that you can also configure the size and the location of the PIP image. And Christopher's going to get into that with you a little bit later. And then you can also display the H264 stream. So this means that if someone comes to the door, end customers can receive a PIP on their display showing their Chime doorbell feed. This is an incredible addition for building a Control4 smart home that has security and media working together on the network. So to explain our next product, you're likely familiar with the typical components that make up a media over IP system. You have a media over IP distribution switch, and you have some endpoints. Typically, you have a transmitter, for each source that you want to distribute, and a receiver at each display source. Each display device. So the transmitters are going to convert an HDMI signal to digital packets and send this source stream to the distribution switch, which is going to forward the stream to each subscribed receiver, where the stream is converted back to HDMI for viewing. But what if we could send and receive in the same device? This is where our transceiver comes in. So the transceiver acts as a receiver and a transmitter in a single chassis, meaning that partners can build an entire system on just transceivers alone. So the transceiver, like we mentioned earlier, can send and receive content simultaneously, or it can be used as a dedicated encoder or decoder. It offers ARC capabilities to backfeed surround sound from a smart TV, but as it has an encoder and a decoder within this single chassis, it can also receive source feeds from other transmitters while simultaneously transmitting sources at the display side when they're connected to the HDMI input. So this transceiver is going to give partners like you even more options and flexibility in both cost and features to design the network that you see fit for your customers. Another note about the transceiver, it does allow for video wall enablement. And so using the 960, so video wall enablement, you can have up to 16 displays, and you can use the 960 receiver or the transceiver for the video wall. And then here's a look at an illustration of a traditional MoIP system design that's centralized with a transmitter at each source and a receiver per display. And this is a representation of a typical MoIP system with a transmitter at each source and a receiver per display. So like our standard rack room. So here you go. And then here you can see a decentralized system. So this just really represents, you can see the flexibility here when you bring in the transceiver, which makes this decentralized. This flexibility enables a local source like a Blu-ray player or game console to be introduced into the network for use by other MoIP endpoints, and will ensure that the transceiver is your go-to for traditional or decentralized systems. So this is the power of this system. Sources do not all have to be in the same place. Then again, you also may want to go with a hybrid approach, which would include some transceivers, some receivers, and some transmitters. So now that we've talked about some of the new products and the capabilities, let's look at how to configure. So when you're designing a MoIP system or any system for a customer, you always want to make sure that you know, what does your customer want? What experience do they want to get out of the system that you're building for them? So things to consider are like, do they want a video wall? Do they want to be able to do video tiling so they can watch multiple sources at once on a single screen? Are they really interested in the picture-in-picture technology so they can have their camera feeds pop up while they're watching TV? So once you know what they want, then you can select the products that are best for the job. And then you can go into designing your network. So let's get into it. So um, a little bit about our system that we have here and why a little bit. So for our products in our scenario that we've got today, we have a router, and then we also have a 620 network, 620 switch, which is going to be the backbone of our net, like our IP traffic, and then we have our 920 switch that is going to be our dedicated switch for media switching. And so when designing your network for the 960 series modules, you want to make sure that you do have a 10 gig Ethernet port throughput. Um, all right, and then in the interest of simplicity, here are 4 commandments for designing a MoIP network. You've got to make sure you've got your 10 gig switches. Make sure you enable IGMP2 snooping. Make sure that you enable IGMP2 fast leave and disable unregistered multicast flooding. So with a simple MoIP system, we will connect the MoIP controller to the MoIP core switch. MoIP core switch. After doing that, um, there's 2 ways you can configure it. And so the quick and easy way is with Oversee. With integration with Arachnus, it's going to enable us to use our MoIP easy button in Oversee for speed of deployment. So in a couple of quick clicks, a single switch system can be set up fast and easy. And so you can see on my screen right here in Oversee where it says configure the MoIP system, then you would go in and it would ask you to select the ports or devices that are MoIP transmitters and receivers. When you click apply, a whole range of settings would be automatically configured for you. So when you set up that easy button in the MoIP, your MoIP easy button in Oversee, what exactly did that configure? So it's going to put us in IGMP v2 and it's going to set us up for jumbo frames. It's going to turn on IGMP snooping, enable IGMP courier, enables fast leave, and it will drop unregistered multicast traffic. And Christopher is going to go through some of that with you and oversee what it looks like on the back end in a little bit. Now, if you're building a bigger system where you have multiple 10 gig switches, some things to keep in mind, you're going to have to allocate 10 gig of bandwidth for each transmitter on the second switch. You're also going to have to allocate 20 gig of bandwidth for each receiver on the second switch with access to more than one source from the first switch. So transmitter bandwidth and receiver bandwidth must be greater than or equal to 100 gig. And then one transceiver equals 30 gigs. Now, if you're spanning multiple switches, the bottleneck is always the uplink. So each one of the B960 transmitters or receivers is going to push approximately 9.7 gigabits. So the uplink can only take 10 streams at a time. Anything more than 10 streams will choke this. So it's important to spread your receivers and transceivers across and kind of separate your transmitters and receivers that go together. Now, If you have multiple switches, you're gonna have to do manual setup. You can't use your easy button in oversee. And so let's go ahead and look at how to do that. So first you would want to log into the switch, navigate to the advanced. So you'd go to advanced on the left side, then you would go to switching, and then you would go to IGMP snooping page, and then select the configuration header, which you can see in my screen. Then you would just toggle enable to turn IGMP snooping on and press apply. After that, you would navigate to advanced and then switching and then IGMP snooping courier and select the configuration header, VLAN configuration for 620 switches. And then toggle enable to turn on, to turn the IGMP2 courier feature on, then click apply at the top of the page. After that, you're going to select the VLAN status header on the same page and then click the options button. You're then going to select the VLAN ID MoIP is configured on, enable fast leave if you're using B960 devices, then click add. Press apply at the top of the page. Then you're going to navigate to advanced, switching, then unregistered multicast behavior, and then select the unregistered multicast action that you want to drop. So once you've configured, after that, you've decided on the products that you want and you've configured your switch, the next thing to do is to make sure that your MoIP configuration, that your MoIP controller is on the latest firmware. So luckily, controllers can be quickly and easily updated in oversee. After the controller is updated, then you're going to power off your MoIP switch and connect to the endpoints. Once the endpoints are connected to the switch and the switch is powered up, the controller will automatically upgrade any endpoints not on the latest firmware version. So once again, by endpoints, we're just talking about your transmitters, your receivers, and your transceivers. The fastest and easiest way to complete setup of a MoIP system is through MoIP system management in oversee. And you always want to set up oversee before your control system configuration. And we'll look at this in just a moment. Another option is another option to get your MoIP system running in its most basic form without an internet connection is the local UI, which is still available. So through the local UI, you can pair endpoints, check status, configure IP settings, and more. However, you cannot name devices through the local UI, so you will need to do that in oversee. We're not going to get into how to configure the local UI today, but here I have the installation guide that will walk you through detailed instructions on that as well as oversee setup. And as you know, it's just always going to be helpful to check the installation guide. So I'll pause here if you want to scan the QR code, and that way you have that as a resource.
Yeah, and while they're scanning that QR code, Jill, I did want to add a little color here. It is possible to set up the very basics of your system in the local UI of the MoIP 960, but really to get the system fully functional, oversee is the place to make the configuration happen.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so next I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Christopher. He's going to go through a demo scenario. So let me just stop sharing and then I'll let him pick up.
So we're gonna pass the torch here, and as we get this rolling here, before I dive into demonstrating integration, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the system here that I have staged that I'm using for this demonstration, so you might have a better understanding of what we're looking at once we're inside oversee and within Composer Pro. So get this. So I'm working in Composer Pro with a demo project that features 2 rooms. There's a tech room, which is the majority of the gear shown, and room 2, which is in the lower right corner. So on the left side of the tech room, you can see our router, our MoIP controller, our Arachnus 620 switch for IP traffic, our AN 920 10 gig switch for media. So top center, you can see that the tech room has a 1x2 video wall in it. The wall is driven by 2 transceivers. There are also 2 transmitters in this room. With those devices, we will be enabling 4 HDMI sources for this system, 2 hooked to transmitters and 2 hooked to transceivers. So at the bottom in the center, I want to point out the audio for this tech room comes from an episode MoIP amp. So we've got a pair of speakers connected directly to it. And that's the overview for the tech room. The smaller room, room number 2, in the lower right corner there, is a single display and a 960 series receiver, and we will use that to demonstrate PIP. So in addition to the 4 HDMI display sources, we also have a Luma camera and a Chime doorbell to be integrated for PIP usage in this demo. Our fully populated project looks like this. Network design, obviously an important aspect of any project. Just to reiterate, in this demo, IP traffic is mostly allocated to the 1 gig switch, the AN620. Please note in the center of the screen, the right transceiver, the one that's hooked to the bright sign player. This configuration option is available if you only have a single cable run pulled to a destination. If you have an IP device like a Roku or a smart TV that requires a data connection, you can take data out of the transceiver and plug it into the device. Our 10 gig traffic is all routed to the AN920. It's important to remember, as mentioned earlier, when staging your system, connect the B900 MoIP controller to your system first and update it with the latest firmware. Once it's updated, power cycle it, and only then begin connecting your transceivers, your transmitters, and your receivers to the system. As these devices connect, the B900 will automatically update their firmware. Okay, setting the topology aside, let's take a look at this system via Oversee. So when we log into Oversee, we'll go to our devices. Now, this is a configured system that we're looking at. So some of the other steps, we've added our receivers, we've added our transceivers, transmitters. First thing we'll take a look at is, yes.
We're not seeing your Oversee.
Oh, okay. All right. How about that?
Yep, we can see it now.
Okay. So one of the first things we'll want to take a look at is our 10 gig switch right here in the project. As Jill mentioned, we have what we call the easy button that will handle our configuration for us. And it's right here on the right side. It's configure MoIP system. And when we click on this button, it basically asks us which ports on this device are going to be dedicated to transceivers, receivers, transmitters, and so on and so forth. And we specify that. Once we do that and click apply, the system will auto configure. And when we talk about auto configure, it goes into the switch and sets parameters in several different areas. It enables things like our IMGP snooping. So IMGP snooping, unregistered multicast behavior, sets a wide range of parameters here for us automatically. So once again, as you're staging a project, and once you are working in OvrC, you'll want to make sure that you have the current firmware in all of your devices. One of the most important there is with your MoIP controller, because as other devices are connected to the system, the MoIP controller will update their firmware. So it needs to be the most current version. So make sure that that is complete and power cycle the device before you start connecting additional devices to your system. This project also contains a video wall. And if we go to site settings in OvrC, we have the ability to manage our MoIP system. There's a manage button down here at the bottom. One of the things I want to stress when you are setting up your devices is naming. And I've used some naming conventions in this project to help me remember what devices are by name. So I have a receiver here that I've got positioned in room 2, and it's hooked to a Dell monitor. I've got input here is labeled room 1. This is actually a left transceiver device, and it has a Blu-ray hooked to the input. So whatever naming conventions you choose, I like to use conventions that I know what I'm looking at a glance, quickly and simply and easily. So naming is a very important part of the devices. It'll become more apparent once we get into Composer Pro in just a couple minutes, because these names will ripple through into your Composer project. So video wall is what I was talking about, and that's actually at the bottom here. I have a 2x1 video wall configured. If we needed to edit this, or if we wanted to add an additional wall, we can do this here in this area. We click add to add a new one. When you add a video wall, you first need to name it. You then configure it in terms of rows and columns, and then you dedicate the receivers to that wall and hit save. So after completing the OvrC setup, we are ready to head into Composer Pro. We'll add the MoIP controller to the project. So when we go into Composer Pro, I have a partially built project here that I'm restoring. So I've got my tech room set up. I've got my secondary room. I have several devices that are already populated into the project. To add our MoIP controller, which will be the first step, we'll go to the Discovered tab. And here is our device. So we're finding the device via SDDP. I'm going to highlight the room that I want to put the controller into, and simply double click to add it to the system. So once the controller's been added to the project, the first thing you need to do is log into it. Once you're fully logged in, it will reveal the current firmware version in the controller. So now that we know that we are connected, we're logged in, please notice that we have the HTTPS protocol is available to us now. I'm going to go to the Actions tab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the MoIP device drivers. So through this process, we connected the MoIP controller, we updated the firmware. After I updated the firmware, I went through and physically connected my receivers, my transceivers, and my transmitters. So those are all visible in Oversee. I've named them. Now those names are going to ripple through when we add these device drivers to the project. You can add them manually. The simplest way to do it is to highlight the controller, go to the Actions tab, and add the MoIP device drivers. So when you do that, you will see the devices populate into the project. So I have receivers, I have 2 transceivers, I have 2 transmitters, and I have my MoIP amp. I also have the video wall that I created earlier, is referenced here. I chose 2 displays and assigned those from within Oversee. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have one of these devices belongs down here in room 2. So once we have added the device drivers to our project, you'll see here that the names have carried over from Oversee. If I went through and I edited any of these names for my transmitters, my transceivers, and I come back here on the primary controller in the Actions tab and hit sync driver with controller, any of those name updates would automatically take place within the Composer Pro project. Once we've added our drivers, the next thing we need to do is to actually make our connections for the system. So hardware connections would be next. I'd go through and find my physical devices and make our physical connections. I used my naming conventions to help speed this process along, so that I know connect my Core 1 HDMI to the appropriate transmitter. I'll go down through my physical devices. I've got my 2 screens in my video wall. I've got a left screen and a right screen. So the left television, I'm going to hook to the transceiver that has left in the name. Right television, I will hook to the transceiver that has right in the name. So our next device will be our Roku player. And then I have a bright sign player that I'm using as a video source. I've got a nice 4K video source. Make that connection in the Blu-ray player. So while I'm doing physical connections, I'm going to bop down to room 2. And I'll make the physical connection there as well. Remember, there's a receiver that we have hooked up for this television. So room 2, there's my receiver. So it's this receiver that we're going to use for our multi-display and for our picture-in-a-picture. So we've made physical connections. We need to do our room endpoints. Now, with the video wall, there's an extra step or 2 that we need to do with our endpoints. So our video endpoint, we'll see right here, here's the video wall that I created out in Oversee. So I'm going to drag that down and make that connection to the wall itself. And then my audio endpoints for this tech room are all going to be my MoIP amp. So I'll take those down. So my audio for video, video volume, audio volume, those all get connected to the MoIP amp. So we have 2 additional endpoints that we need to make for this room with the video wall to make sure that we have correct functionality. It's not intuitive, so you don't want to forget this. We're going to utilize an additional endpoint for video, and we need to add our 2 televisions that actually comprise the wall. So we'll connect our left, and when we do that, it spawns another one for us in the list, and we will connect our right. So our endpoints for the tech room are complete. We'll go down to room 2, make sure that our connections, yes, these should all be our television for that room, and that looks good. So if we hit refresh, refresh our navigators, we should be able to begin programming. Give me a second here. I'm going to juggle some screens. And so that's the physical connections, and those are our endpoints that we would make for this example project. So we're going to move next to the demonstration of how we integrate our multi-view and our PIP with Chime and Luma cameras. So we will start with our multi-view. Now on the multi-view, I have already configured one, and I can demonstrate that here. So I have that up on the screen. Should be able to see that or not. You got a blank screen. So the configuration on the multi-view, I was going to show you the end result, but I'm not able to switch to that right now. So configuration on the multi-view, we'll go to system design. The configuration that we do for multi-view and for our P&P is all done on the receiver. You have to use a receiver to perform these functions. What we do is we highlight the receiver. So I've got my receiver in room 2. We're going to go to actions. And the first thing I'm going to do is to add a multi-view preset. So when we add a preset, the first thing we need to do is name it. So I'm going to call this MV demo. You then choose the layout of the multi-view. What I've been working with here is a side-by-side. I have several different options depending on the number of sources that you have in a system. It's important to remember that when you are creating a multi-view, you cannot use sources that are being utilized elsewhere in the system. Those sources become exclusive to the multi-view when it's in use. For my audio source, I don't need a source, so I'm going to select none. And then you start choosing your sources for the multi-view. So in this case, we're going to use our bright sign player, and we'll use our Blu-ray player and click OK to create that. Once you have created that preset, you need to make that functionality accessible to the system. One of the easiest ways to do that is to create a custom button. So with agents, you want to make sure your custom buttons agent is running, and you'll need to add that multi-view to a menu. So I've got a couple set up here. So when you're creating custom buttons, you have to first add the button, and then you create the button list. Once you've built those containers, as I refer to them, you go to programming and we program them. So find our custom buttons agent. We'll find our multi-view button. And so I created 2 items here. The first is side by side, which will be the functionality that we just created. An important thing to remember is to create an off function as well when you want to disable the multi-view. Same goes for P&P. If you want to manually trigger something to off, don't forget to create an off function. The side by side, the programming for that is very straightforward. I'll delete my program to show you how I generated it. So our when event is in the room on multi-view when side by side is pressed. We're going to scroll down and find our receiver, which is in room 2. We'll scroll down and we're going to issue a device-specific command. And it's select PIP preset. I'm sorry, we're working with multi-view. Getting ahead there. So we're going to select the multi-view preset and we'll choose the preset from the list. I just created this one here called MV Demo 2. We'll double click and that is now functional. So if I was able to switch to my camera feed, you would see 2 pictures side by side in my room 2 screen. So in the interest of time, I'm going to jump forward and show you P&P here real quick as well. We'll go back to system design. To create the P&P process, it also starts on the on the receiver. So once again, we'll highlight our receiver in system design, go to actions. We will add a PIP preset. So this preset name, I'll call it Chime. So I have a Chime doorbell and we'll do lower right. I'll do Chime LR. This will be my preset name. We have to then select the camera. So we can see here we have a Chime doorbell camera and I have a Luma X20 available. So we'll choose my Chime and then we will send that to the lower right. And then the width is a percentage of the screen. So you can make it large or small. So I'm going to do 30%, which is a little larger, and click OK. Programming works the same way. One of the easiest ways to do this is to go to Agents, create custom buttons. Here you can see I have created an entire PIP function menu. So I've got PIP for the lower right for my X20, PIP for the lower right for my Ring, PIP off in the center, PIP upper left for my X20, PIP. So you've got the ability to position it around the screen based on what you're watching. So I've created my buttons. Programming the buttons was just the same way, works the same way as we did our MVs. So custom buttons, we'll select our menu, which I have here for room 2 PIP functions. So our lower right Ring doorbell, if we press that, I've got programming there, I'll delete that and show you how I built it. So once again, we select on the then side, our receiver. We'll scroll down, select a device specific command, and we will select a PIP preset. And so there's Chime, lower right, and that would make the preset we're looking for. Off is an important one as well, both for multi-views and PIPs. So the programming for creating an off functionality is to go to the receiver and it's set PIP is the item. We'll select off and make that programming as well. It's important to keep in mind that we can trigger our picture-in-picture with any number of system events. Probably one of the most popular would be our doorbell. So if we can take programming from our Chime doorbell, one button is pressed. And I'm not going to go through building the programming here, but so when the Chime doorbell button is pressed, we've got it so that I'll have a PIP pop up. I've added a delay in the programming for 15 seconds. And then after that, I've issued a second command, which turns it off. So in this case, if somebody comes to the front door, presses the doorbell button, I will get a PIP that pops up on my TV screen over my current source for 15 seconds, and then that will close and go away. So in the interest of time, I think we need to turn it over for questions at this point.
All right, thank you, Christopher. Any questions that we have, please feel free to throw them in the chat, or if Rob, you wanted to take some of the questions that were already asked, if you deem them kind of important to kind of go over them, live, you could do that as well.
I think most of them we've got a good handle on in the chat there, but I did want to reiterate, for the multi-view and the picture-in-picture setup, yes, we're going to post this webinar to our events page, and that link is in the chat, so you guys can go back and review that. But we also have knowledge-based articles created, and I've also posted those links in the Q&A, so you guys can have step-by-step instructions on how to set each one of those up.
We've also created a solutions page. I just posted in the chat if you're looking for some more information on our MoIP ecosystem and doing a deep dive into that.
Thank you. Also, we just wanted to add, remember, your tech community is always going to be a one-stop shop for you to find relevant, up-to-date information about all Snap One brands and products. And I know that there is a lot of information on MoIP and 960 in the tech community as well. So I have the QR code up there if anyone needs it. And then before you leave, if you could take a minute and give us some feedback on our presentation today, we would really appreciate it. And thank you so much for taking the time to join. I'm also going to drop the link to our feedback form in the chat so everyone has it.
Yeah, and looks like we have a couple of questions coming in.
Yeah, we'll see if we can fire a couple of these off. So does the 960 series only work for 4K sources, or can I use a 1080p source with it? You absolutely can mix and match 4K and 1080p in the same system with the B960. So no concerns there. And
just to add to that, if it with a well, we didn't show it in the demo, but there is a HDCP option on your TXs and input on the TR to adjust HDCP 1.4 for your 1080p devices to ensure cross compatibility. So just a little bit extra on that one. For the one with PIP and Multiview with other control systems, currently the only driver we've written is for Control4. However, we are working on putting out the REST API documentation for the new 4X builds of MoIP that should allow PIP and Multiview to be configured with other control systems. We just did not build our own individual drivers for those. For the one about multi-site locations through VPN traffic, that is not something that would be possible through MoIP, or it's not designed to do that. You'd be relying on the VPN to also communicate the traffic between the 169 link local addresses across site to site. And generally VPNs are usually only the local layer. It'd be very difficult config and probably would not work out very well. For controlling the sources in Multiview when using Control4, Multiview works like a canvas over the display. So what you can do is you can issue a watch command once Multiview is configured for any of the sources that are in that Multiview. If you send a watch to that room that the Multiview is configured in, you can then control the source in the window. Currently, that's the way that it operates. We're hoping to have some improvements out later on down the line through the MDM agent and some reworks of that allow for better multi-view control.
good questions. Any others we can tackle in the last few minutes here for you?
Yeah, I don't see anything coming in. Looks like you guys answered it all. Excellent. Well, I appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you got something from this webinar and about MoIP systems. We got one more that came in real quick. When we change the room to control the source, would that turn on that room?
Yes, if I'm understanding that correctly, generally that would turn the room on. However, if you're changing the control for the multi-view room, the room should already be on. Maybe I'm missing a little bit of context there. But feel free to drop us another one or email in and we'll help out.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you everyone for their time, and have a great rest of the day.